I'm Mark. I'm a student. I'm a fourth year student, PhD student in Swansea University under the supervision of Professor Juan Mareque. And I'm here to present my work on chemically programmed iron oxide loaded nanovaccines for cancer immunotherapy. So very briefly, as we all know, with the progressive development of cancer, with its progressive accumulation of mutations, the tumor is able to progressively accumulate different mechanisms to avoid the action of the immune system that otherwise would be able to recognize the tumor, this abnormal clump of cells, and attack it. By accumulating these mechanisms of immune evasion, the cancer is able to stabilize its own growth. It is said that the tumor is tolerated by the immune system, and therefore the main objective of immunotherapy for cancer will be to revert such situation and turn this tolerated tumor into a targeted tumor, into a tumor that can be recognized by the immune system as something to be attacked and something to be, in that case, killed. With the progressive and in parallel development of nanomedicine, we've been able to also gain mechanisms of, for instance, protection of the cargo from early degradation. We've been able to gain mechanisms to gain control over the spatial and kinetic delivery of the different immunotherapeutic compounds, and thus gaining capacities for driving up the efficiency of the therapy while avoiding any concerns regarding to off-target toxicities. Now, in this context, what our work was centered on is in the development of these nanovaccines that had iron oxide as the centerpiece of these nanovaccines for cancer, for immunotherapy for cancer. So why iron oxide? Well, as we understand it, iron oxide particularly gives us a very high degree of customization and therefore a very high potential of therapy personalization. And we can broadly distinguish three zones or three levels of customization. The first one being the core of the iron oxide itself. There's many methods by which we can play for the synthesis of iron oxide, which we can play with the size, with the shape of the particles. We can even play with doping the particles with elements that might be of our interests, such as radio tracers. And we can even generate heterostructures, such as the commercially available and widely used gold-coated iron oxide nanoparticles. A second level of customization would be the loading of the vaccine itself. And we're talking on one side on the compounds themselves that we can load, the different many immunostimulatory drugs that exist and that are being evaluated right now, but also referring to the way these compounds are attached or loaded in our vaccines by properly selecting a bioconjugation strategy that, as we will see in this work, for instance, we can choose strategies that allow us for site-specific delivery of the compound, that in our case, we will use pH-sensitive moieties in order to allow for this site-specific delivery. A third level of customization will be the delivery itself. And again, we're talking of two different concepts. First, the administration of the system itself. How do we administer our vaccines into the host? And in here, particularly, I'm referring, for instance, to one of the speakers that we had yesterday, Saul, who is a colleague of mine, and who develops microneedles in order to encapsulate such nanovaccines and distribute them or administer them in a manner that is spatially and kinetically controlled. But again, it's not only the way we administer it, but what do we co-administer within a vaccine? And in that case, we can see, and we will see in this work, that we can administer, for instance, our nanovaccines with state-of-the-art immunotherapy strategies, such as immune checkpoint blockade inhibitors, and with it drive better immune responses and enhanced therapeutic outcomes. However, there's more benefits that make these iron oxide particles especially interesting for cancer, and that is in particular their capacity for oxidative catalysis. These particles in presence of hydrogen peroxide they're able to catalyze the generation of reactive oxygen species, which are a key messenger in immune stimulation or immune-related processes. Some of the ones that are most relevant for our case, for driving powerful immune stimulatory responses, are, for instance, the relation of ROS, these reactive oxygen species, with macrophage polarization or antigen processing and presentation. Not only that, an excess of oxidative activity might drive damage to the cell or to the tissue itself, triggering a chain of non-apoptotic oxidative type of cell death, that is ferroptosis. Ferroptosis because it's catalyzed by the presence of iron. Now, the first key element that we had to prove is whether if our particles were able to catalyze this generation of reactive oxygen species. What we're seeing here on the right is basically the comparison of two similarly sized nanoparticles. In green, the iron oxide nanoparticles; in blue, purple, the gold nanoparticles. These are particles, again, similarly sized at the same concentration. And we say that is the iron oxide nanoparticle that drives a much higher oxidative catalysis rate. However, is this oxidative character translated in vitro? Well, it is, and we can see it through two different methods, departing in that case from the same hypothesis. We can administer drugs onto our cancer cells in order to deplete their capacity of the cancer cells to generate antioxidants, while at the same time administering iron oxide nanoparticles that can ramp up the generation of this oxidative stress, of these reactive oxygen species, and through its combination, drive higher degrees of oxidation and eventually cancer cell death. We see this directly, we can see this both ways, as I introduced. First, by analyzing the peroxidation of the membrane itself, we can load a dye that becomes fluorescent when specifically being oxidized by the presence of lipid peroxides on the membrane. And we see that there's clearly a shift towards the right, which is a shift towards higher fluorescence. That is a shift towards a higher presence of peroxidated lipids in the membrane. And we see that this translates in terms of viability into an overall decrease of the viability of the cancer cells when we combine both the depletion of the antioxidants and the addition of our iron oxide nanoparticles. When we then play with higher levels of customization, in that case, we can load immunostimulatory drugs such as poly-IC and imiquimod. These are very well-known and very potent immunostimulatory drugs that we can load by non-specific electrostatical interactions between the drugs and the surface of our particle. And we see that when we evaluate this treatment in a more complicated, more complex environment, in that case, we have a culture of our cancer cells with macrophages, we see that is the complete treatment that drives complete annihilation of the cancer cells while still very good viability of the macrophages, in that case of over 70%. And these are results that are not reproduced by any of the other controls. If we look at the immunostimulatory profile, we see that the emission of an immunostimulatory cytokine such as TNF-alpha is significantly increased by the presence of our treatments, whereas a classically immunodepressive, immunosuppressive cytokine such as interleukin-10 remains at baseline levels, even if it looks like, even if it would decrease slightly, although non-significantly. Finally, what do we see in vivo, and what do we see when we combine all the different mechanisms that we have of customization for our particles? We're combining here the capacity of our particles to load immunostimulatory drugs, as we saw. We're also combining other particles onto which we can load proteins that would serve as antigen. In this case, we're loading this antigen through this site-specific pH-sensitive moiety chemical bond that will allow us to liberate the cargo at a very specific pH, in that case, at the endosomal pH. We can also dope our or insert radiotraces in the magnetite structure of our nanoparticle. And finally, we can evaluate the synergy of our particles with other immunotherapy strategies such as immune checkpoint blockade inhibitors. So first of all, we can see the biodistribution through this process of doping the iron oxide structure with radio tracers. We see that our particles accumulate in the tumor and in the lymph nodes, which are a very important center for processing for the immune system. That's indicating that our particles are being processed by the immune system, and we have many other ways to evaluate such activation of the immune system as it happened. And then we can look at the results themselves of the in vivo experiment, and we can evaluate the importance of the different mechanisms that we have for customizing our particles. In red, in these box in red, we see what happens when our vaccine contains a gold nanoparticle instead of an iron oxide nanoparticle, which are the boxes in blue, and which clearly drive better and enhanced outcome. Between the dark blue box and light blue box, what we see is the importance of loading the antigen in a site-specific delivery way, as I introduced with this pH-sensitive moiety. The lighter blue would be the case in which we loaded the antigen through basically non-specific bondings, interactions, which then could liberate the antigen in other places or in off-targeting, basically. Finally, we can evaluate the importance of the third level of customization, that is how our nanovaccines can be synergized with other state-of-the-art immunotherapies. And we clearly see that it's when we combine our nanovaccines with the immune checkpoint inhibitors, what we see is that we end up with two groups with a 40 and 25% of complete cancer rejection that also reject cancer rechallenge, meaning that the survival populations had not only survived the cancer, but gained long-term immunity against its reappearance, against rechallenge in that case. So all in all, we've been able to synthesize chemically tunable and modular platforms, in that case based on this centerpiece that is the iron oxide nanoparticles, and by which to trigger strong immunotherapeutic synergies, leading us to results in which we observe complete tumor rejection and long-term immunity. And with this, I finish my presentation. I want to acknowledge my supervisor, Juan, my colleague, Saul, Joel, and our main collaborator in Spain, Anne. And then the groups from James Cronin and Martin Cliff, which are sitting here in Swansea and who contributed very significantly to this work. Also to the APSRC, which are funding this project, and obviously to the British Society of Nanomedicine for having me here. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, fabulous talk and very interesting research. I have some questions from audience. The first one is, how did you quantify successful biocoagulation onto the nanoparticle cores?
How do I quantify successful bioconjugation onto the nanoparticle cores? In the case of, for instance, if we're referring to the loading of these immunostimulatory drugs that I was talking about, the poly-IC and imiquimod, these are both particles that have very particular profiles of UVBs, of absorbance of light. And basically you can play with, when you synthesize our particles, you can see that whether if you centrifuge the particles, you end up with a pellet and a supernatant. You can see that in the supernatant, and even in the pellet, but especially in the supernatant, these drugs disappear because they are trapped in the particle, and in the particle itself, you can even observe this increase in absorbance in the peaks that are characteristic by these two drugs. In the case of the bioconjugation of the peptide that is driven by this pH-sensitive moiety, this pH-sensitive moiety includes in itself an aromatic ring that again has a very characteristic absorbance profile, and through similar ways, looking at comparing between the particles that do not have anything and the particles that are loaded, you can clearly see the contribution of this added or bioconjugated moiety in the structure.
Okay, thank you. Also, I have a second question. What is the typical uptake pathway for nanoparticle system into the cells, and do you do any categorization to determine the uptake?
Sorry, the thing is that I cannot really
Yeah,
understand your I don't know. So I'm trying to find the question by reading it. Maybe I think it's my headphones or something, but
the second question is talking about the cellular reuptake of your nanoparticle system. What is the typical of uptake pathway for your nanoparticle system?
okay, sorry. Yes, this was done previously actually to my work. This kind of this is a long-term project that has been going, and I've been able to participate and contribute with the things that I've shown. But we had already observed that through micropinocytosis, these particles are able to be engulfed and end up in the endosomes of the cells that absorb them. In that case, as far as I remember, they were particularly dendritic and macrophage cells, which is relevant because, for instance, these two drugs, the polyice and imiquimod, are drugs that are particularly processed in the endosome, and through locating them in the endosome, we clearly can see that that's where they might be best, do their job.
Yeah. Also, I have some questions regarding the stability and the safety of your delivery system. Could you give us more details about the stability and
Yeah.
or safety of your, especially for toxicity of iron oxide?
Yeah, in terms of studying the stability, the studies on stability were relatively simple. We did not evaluate the stability as Christian asks in protein plasma, and we did not evaluate the protein corona that might be formed onto the particle, although it was obviously considered because it's not only important for stability, but even it's important on how then these particles might be directed or be distributed depending on how they interact with the other cells. So the studies were made by evaluating that the particles were perfectly stable through at least 2-3 weeks in PBS at 37 degrees, but not in plasma. We didn't evaluate in plasma.
Thank you so much.